welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching Channels Television, celebrating 21 years of professional broadcasting.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
We can now share with you some of those pictures that we have. And let's begin with this one from Isheri Magodo area of Lagos State. It shows men installing street lights. And according to our Eyewitness reporter, the project is being sponsored by residents. Our next photo shows a road badly affected by erosion in Affirms area of Delta State. Our Eyewitness reporter wants the state government to fix it. And here's one from Kaduna, the Kaduna state capital. It shows a bad road. Our Eyewitness reporter wants the appropriate authorities to do something about it. We also have an image of a fallen electricity cable which was sent in from Sabon Giri area of Kano State. Our Eyewitness reporter wants men of the Kano Electricity Distribution Company to fix the cable quickly. Let's end with this photo from BUK Road in Kano, Kano State. It shows the scene of an accident. Our Eyewitness reporter advises motorists to adhere to speed limits.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Thanks a lot for your pictures, and do keep them coming into us. The United States has urged Nigeria to increase the sums allocated to agriculture sector to end poverty and build a diversified economy. The mission director of the United States Agency for International Development, Mr. Michael Harvey, identified lack of capital and research among other challenges that impede job creation and development. Our correspondent Gloria Umezoke reports.
Technology-savvy customers.
Carving out a sustainable future in agriculture is the kernel of discussion here, with the Minister of Agriculture and state representatives at the United States Embassy in Nigeria. It has become a major concern locally and internationally. The U.S. government is now seeking to intensify partnership with the private sector to accelerate production and expand the market, but there is a challenge.
The real issue is capital, because without capital you can't access the seeds, you can't access the fertilizers, and you can't access the knowledge that you need to boost productivity. And on all three of those, when we see young people coming, they're not just bringing ideas, they're also bringing capital, because as capital begins to see that they can get a return on investment.
The Minister of Agriculture, however, brings cheering news. Before the end of the year, the federal government will launch an agriculture fund to improve investment.
We're trying to reform the Bank of Agriculture to give cheaper credit. I'm bargaining for 5% credit of agri-credit to farmers. We're organizing farmers to form cooperatives, and so the cooperatives can become the borrowers. If we can't feed this country well, there just can't be peace.
The United States made it clear that global food security depends on Nigerian farmers, and so through a Feed the Future initiative, the U.S. government seeks to assist the sector to become economically productive. The country is spending close to $1 billion every year on importation of milk, and that is among several other importations the federal government is hoping to stop, especially through international partnerships like this, to bring real growth to the agriculture sector. Gloria Umezoke, Channels Television News.
The Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, has restated his loyalty to the ruling All Progressives Congress. In a statement signed by his special assistant on new media, the Senate President reiterated his belief that President Buhari's government will redeem its electoral promises made during the 2015 general elections. He was speaking at a housing summit in the Federal Capital Territory. He stated that the APC government is committed to the social welfare of the people, and also gave the assurance that the National Assembly is working to make a difference in the housing sector. Now, the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Ibrahim Idris, has paid a one-day working visit to Borno State to assess the security situation in that area. Mr. Idris also evaluated the return of civil authority to towns and villages liberated from the Boko Haram insurgents. The IGP paid a courtesy call on Governor Kashim Shettima in his office to facilitate the deployment of police officers for the protection of displaced persons as they return home. Mr. Idris also donated some relief materials to IDPs at Muna camp. In addition, he gave security operatives in the state the assurance that the federal government is determined to improve their welfare and commended them for their service to the nation. Taking a look at health now, people living with HIV are vivid reminders that health is a human right, and that's according to the UN Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, who is participating in the 21st AIDS Conference in Durban, South Africa. Mr. Ban was part of a panel along with South Africa's deputy at the flag-off press conference. Our Johannesburg Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, reports.
There are very many meetings and marches here, all centered on how to fight and end the menace of HIV and AIDS by 2030. The United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says despite advancements in this fight, it's important to break down existing barriers to access to treatment.
To end this epidemic, we must close the gaps that keep people from accessing services and living with dignity. We have to expand resources, science and services, and we have to protect and promote the rights of people living with HIV.
We need also to design and implement programs that address the needs of key populations that are at risk. We are optimistic that the deliberations here in Durban will yield commitments from the international community to invest in research as well as in development that could lead to new opportunities and options for a vaccine and a functional cure.
The representatives of the International AIDS Society, the organizers, gave a picture of what's been done, and what's still to be done.
We must make wiser and more effective use of the prevention tools that we have and press ahead in our scientific quest to find methods that will yield greater results.
For Hollywood star and activist Charlize Theron, the adolescents must be included in these discussions if progress is to be made.
I think until we actually effectively reach these young people and get them effectively engaged, to empower them, to want better for themselves, to have the tools, the resources to do that, nothing is going to change in the fight of this epidemic. We will be maintaining AIDS.
The core push here is how to break down the barriers, political, social and economic, standing against access to HIV and AIDS treatment to all those who need it anywhere they are in the world. In the next few days, we will be seeing many more discussions, information sharing, at the end of which we will have a second Durban declaration from the Albert Lutuli Convention Center in Durban, South Africa. Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
Let's get another perspective now. I'm being joined by the Assistant Chief Program Officer of the National Agency for the Control of AIDS, Mr. Dozie Okechukwu. He joins me from Abuja. Thank you so much for joining us on the News at 10. Now, it's the 21st conference, as we can see, and as someone familiar with attending things like this or seeing conferences like this over the years, would you say we're making progress? I mean, even in terms of awareness now?
Yeah, thank you. I would say for Nigeria, we make remarkable progress considering where we started from. At 2001, our prevalence was around 5.8%, and from that point till this year, we've achieved a steady decline, over time, and currently the last ANC survey gives us a prevalence rate of 3%, and that's quite remarkable. And beyond that also, in terms of access to services, today we have well over 800,000 people on ART, and that's, even though it's not 100%, it's just about 46% coverage, but considering where we started from and the challenges we have to go through, I would say we've made some remarkable progress. We also reduced the rate of new infections over the last 10 years by about 54%, and that's quite remarkable.
Okay, now looking at
as populated as Nigeria.
Looking at barriers to access, because that's one of the bigger problems that we've been talking about, even in terms of the statistics that we have. I mean, 3.2 million people affected, just around 600,000 on antiretrovirals, and even of that figure, just 30% have access to subsidized ART. So what do we do to improve access to those who are actually inflicted by this?
Let me start by correcting the data I just read out. We have over 800,000 people on treatment having access to antiretroviral drugs as we speak. In fact, the right figure should be 823,000 people on ARVs nationwide, supported by the government of Nigeria, US government, and some private sector. And having said that, it's not Uhuru yet. We still have barriers in terms of inequitable access to service delivery points across the country, barriers in terms of even affordability, barriers in terms of issues around insecurity in the Northeast, for instance, which has also affected access to services in that region remarkably, and also barriers in terms of stigma, even though we've made some progress in that regard as well. And so in my opinion, I would say that these barriers, we acknowledge them, and so far we've made some remarkable progress in terms of addressing some of them. For instance, ARVs are free all over the country. I mean, you don't have to pay for it. All you need to do is get tested, know your status, and then walk into the ART center, and the healthcare workers are ready to attend to you, and you have access to your treatment as well as other associated laboratory services free of charge all across the country.
All right, Mr. Dozie Okechukwu, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on the news at 10 tonight. And when the news at 10 returns, Nigeria's inflation rate hits 16.5% for the first time in 11 years. That's beyond business. Just stay with us.